Legacy overhead. That's what he called me. I was midway through updating a compliance audit worksheet when the video feed fizzled on. And there he was, Matt. Maybe 30, if we're being gracious. The type of guy who probably said synergy during pillow talk and believed Excel macros were cutting-edge wizardry. The CFO introduced him as the efficiency fixer, which is corporate translation for a hatchet man wearing a cheerful mask. 10 like he paid extra for the UV level, teeth bleached to villain brightness, and hair styled like he searched alpha male fade on YouTube that morning. "Hi everyone," he said, flashing the smirk you see on grown men who still do keg stands at weddings. "I'm here to streamline operations and remove process redundancies." His eyes scanned the team until they locked onto me through the monitor like he was picking which antique furniture piece to toss first. I didn't even blink. I just hit save as on the folder holding every licensing document, federal renewal timestamp, an internal compliance chain tied to my name, labeled it church pancake recipes, and backed it up to my private drive. Dana Miller wasn't going out like a rookie. By lunchtime, I overheard him in the break room cracking jokes with 2 junior analysts about phasing out boomer infrastructure. I'm 42, not a boomer, but in Matt's worldview, if you don't TikTok your workflow, you're already dust. Then came the huddle in the open floor plan, everyone standing around like we were attending the exorcism of common sense. Matt opened a slide deck full of corporate gibberish: agile compliance ecosystem, decentralized accountability hubs. I watched 3 interns nod like they were witnessing the second coming of the almighty Elon Musk. Some of our team members, especially those with legacy responsibilities, will be reassessed to ensure alignment with our lean strategy, he said. Then he stared straight at me. "We appreciate your historical contributions, Dana." Historical. Like I was a museum exhibit tucked somewhere between HR and the basement boiler. I didn't argue. I just smiled, the smile someone gives when they know another person has wandered right into the bear trap they spent a decade camouflaging. Oh, and quick pause before the chaos continues. If you're listening and not subscribed, help a soul out. Trying to hit 10,000 subscribers so I can finally buy a chair that doesn't wobble like a baby deer. And seriously, 95% of you watch without hitting the button. One tap. Make this girl proud. All right, back to the implosion. That night, I stayed late not because I needed to, but because I wanted to watch the system breathe. Like a mother checking on her kids before CPS shows up. I triple-checked my credentials across 3 federal platforms. Free active certification, renewal control, licensing PIN, and audit clearance, all still tied to my name. Timestamps perfect. Then I printed the one contract clause nobody reads. Section 7C. In the event of involuntary termination, all company-paid licensing responsibilities and regulatory certifications shall be void, and all credentials rescinded within 48 hours of contract nullification. Nobody noticed me leaving the building, but I noticed how Matt looked at me the next morning like a lion eyeing a cow that, unbeknownst to him, has access to predator drones. Have you ever watched a man mistake a fuse for a shoelace? You're about to .by Tuesday. Matt had taped a poster above the copier that read "Compliance Complacency" in Comic Sans. Then the real circus arrived. Everyone had to re-interview for their evolved role, framed as a team-building exercise. Like we should be grateful for the privilege of auditioning for the same job title printed on our insurance cards. One by one, people filed into conference rooms like kids heading toward the principal's office. The new hires floated out smiling, parroting, "Matt really sees me. And he's bringing fresh air." I wanted to tell them air like that typically comes from a ruptured sewer line. When it was my turn, I didn't bring her some. I brought silence. Matt barely glanced up from his laptop. "Dana, you've been here a while. 10 years, I said. Calm as a cucumber lost in a snowstorm, right? Institutional knowledge. We value that." His fingers clacked on the keys, probably typing "Fire Dinosaur" into Slack before he pulled up an organizational chart and gestured toward a box labeled "Regulatory Stewardship." Under it, my name scratched out. Next to it, "Open to be reassigned." Then he clicked into a tab titled "Quarter 3 Renewal Delegation." The file was named Q3 License Reroute Plan V1. And in the comments, "Can this be transferred downstream?" Downstream in Matt speak, men dumping it onto someone who thought OSHA was a celebrity. I smiled again. Didn't react outwardly. But internally? A siren went off, back at my desk. I opened the database I'd built from scratch in 2016. The one tracking every compliance certificate, expiration date, governing agency, and signature authority. 43 items. 43 licenses. 43 strands of red tape braided into one very tight corporate news, every single one tied to me. I exported a fresh copy, encrypted it, zipped it, renamed it Employee Birthday Cake List, and emailed it to a private account. Then wiped the sent items clean. Call me paranoid, but I've watched children play with matches and call it innovation. That afternoon, he reassigned my inspection prep to a marketing intern who thought FDA stood for Food Design Aesthetic. She genuinely asked if that meant redesigning the lunchroom posters. Meanwhile, my new assignment was reorganizing the janitorial supply shelf. Matt claimed it would keep me in the loop at a foundational level. Foundational like the mold in the basement. I calmly asked if I still had admin access to our licensing dashboard. Matt blinked as I'd just recited ancient scripture. Oh, I think we routed that to Chloe last week. You don't really need it anymore, right? Chloe had only recently discovered what a PDF was. I didn't argue. Instead, I nodded, walked down the hall, logged into a terminal, and revoked her access through the shadow admin panel I never told anyone existed. If they were kicking me off the ship, I wasn't leaving behind the map. Later that day, I walked past Matt's glass-walled office. He was laughing on a call, saying something about scrubbing out the old wood. He didn't see me watching, but I saw something in him. The fuse had gotten shorter, and the whole room reeked of smoke. The first time I heard them laughing, I let it slide. 3 junior analysts, fresh from college, still damp with inexperience but puffed up with borrowed confidence, were huddled over a printed copy of my old compliance flowchart like archaeologists examining a prehistoric mural. This thing uses color codes like it's a Crayola box. One snorted, another chimed in. She even timestamps everything manually. Does she know automation exists? They clustered near the break room like a pack of overconfident poodles, sipping cold brew and tossing out buzzwords like agile iteration and machine learning integration. As if those phrases had ever saved a federal audit from imploding. I walked past them with my head high, but my spine burned. By Wednesday, I'd been locked out of 3 internal dashboards, 2 of which I personally built. No message, no request for access revocation. Just a 4003 error and a pop-up politely suggesting I contact your system administrator. Spoiler. I was the system administrator. Or had been. I emailed IT. No response. Called hour. Got a voicemail colder than a Detroit January after 4 attempts. A real person finally picked up, only to say, sorry. Dana, all HR requests now go through your departmental manager. That's Matt. That's Matt. Like they were announcing some second coming, just with more hair gel and absolutely zero divine oversight. I hung up. Didn't argue. Just stared at my monitor, blank but glowing, like it was attending my funeral. In less than a week, I had been cut off from every meaningful system. No explanations. Just streamlining. Matt wasn't smart in a constructive way. He was smart in that insidious MBA way, never enough to create anything, but just clever enough to dismantle decades of work under the camouflage of policy updates and reorg memos. He'd started dropping little grenades into his weekly updates to leadership, phrases like legacy processes under review, potential staffing overlaps, redundant certification management identified. That last one made me laugh. Redundant? As if you could overlap a federally mandated authority signature tied to my biometric ID. I had become a walking contradiction. Officially employed. Strategically erased. So I booked a 10-minute appointment at a notary office, a quiet little place above a nail salon on Monroe Avenue. No drama, no witnesses, just me, a stiff plastic chair, and a form titled Voluntary Relinquishment of Licensing Authority. I didn't sign it yet. I just notarized the possibility of signing it. A safety pin tucked into my coat pocket in case things ever turned into freefall. Afterward, I walked back to the office with a peppermint latte and the deadest smile you can imagine. Matt passed me in the hallway and said, "Hope you're feeling more aligned this week." I nodded. "Just tying up loose ends." He smiled, one of those corporate snake smiles you'd find on the cover of a best-selling self-help book, right between Crush It and a $19 lavender candle. What he didn't know was that every loose end I tied had a fuse attached. And I had the match.id happen on a Monday, because of course it did. The kind of Monday where the office air feels like microwaved plastic and everyone pretends to enjoy their jobs just enough to survive until Friday. We gathered for Matt's weekly momentum sync, basically. A TED Talk hosted by someone who shouldn't be near a microphone. He stood at the front of the open floor bullpen in his too tight blue blazer and did that palms out gesture people use when they're about to slaughter your career but want credit for transparency. "Let's start with some candor," he said. That word candor always means someone is about to stab you in public while insisting it's constructive feedback. "We've been doing a lot of reflection these last few weeks," he continued, pacing like a man preparing to sell time shares in hell. "While tradition has value, stagnation is a threat." He stopped right behind my chair. I didn't turn around. Then, loud enough for everyone to hear, certain legacy roles are no longer aligned with our forward momentum. People shifted uncomfortably. Some stared at the floor. A couple glanced at me. One kid attempted a half smile, like this was some light-hearted announcement about parking spaces and not someone's livelihood being executed in real time. Then the final blow. Effective immediately, Matt announced, "Dana Miller's position has been phased out. No warning. No meeting. No one-on-one. Just a sentence floating through the air like a bullet." I stood not because I was shaken, but because my legs felt steady enough to kick him into a wall. Her two representatives, both young, both avoiding eye contact, approached carrying a glossy folder like they were delivering communion. I took it, opened it, and flipped to the termination page. No severance. Just legal jargon and a line for my signature. I pulled a pen from my own bag, signed in one stroke, and said, "I'll need a printed copy." Matt blinked. "It's all digital." I said printed. HR hesitated. I stared. 4 minutes later, I walked out with a paper copy, a stapled receipt, and the calm of a woman who knew exactly what she'd just set in motion. You see, the moment I signed that form, Section 7C of my contract activated a hidden clause across 3 federal databases, an invisible tripwire. Every active certification the company paid for my certifications immediately triggered auto-revocation. Not expired. Not suspended. Nullified. At 7:13 p.m. My phone pinged with confirmation. "Your authority over licenses hashtag CN8835-244, hashtag FD2210-298, and hashtag MDR5081-202 has been formally relinquished. Entities dependent on these licenses will be marked non-compliant in 24 hours unless reauthorized by a certified replacement." I didn't forward it, didn't screenshot it, didn't reply. I just sat in my apartment, sipped boxed Merlot, watched reruns of The Golden Girls, and let the digital news cinch around Matt's precious forward momentum. I slept like a newborn. Wednesday morning began with a whimper and a very expensive pile of nothing. At 9:04 a.m., procurement tried confirming shipment of medical-grade filtration components for one of our biotech clients, the type of materials you don't breathe near without 3 signatures and a biohazard stamp. The vendor responded, "Cannot fulfill shipment." Receiving entity listed as inactive. License CN8835-244 expired. Contact the listed certifying officer. Guess who that was? 10 minutes later, the system began coughing up anomalies. Logins failed. API calls choked. A scheduled data sync with the FDA audit portal returned a rejection code. Invalid license holder. Within the hour, our internal license dashboard, usually a calm meadow of green, lit up like a Christmas tree in hell. Red alerts everywhere. Inactive statuses. Credentials marked orphaned. Matt, ever the smooth-brained diplomat, strolled into the operations pod holding a to-go cup from some hip downtown caf. "We'll just update the contact info," he said. One compliance analyst, a sweet kid named Renee, tried to explain. "Sir, contact updates requires certification reauthorization." Dana was the certifying officer legally. Matt blinked. So do it anyway. She was the only credentialed officer with reauthorization authority across all active verticals. No one else is registered with the Federal Compliance Board. And the RA registration period. It takes weeks. There was a silence. Not the awkward kind, the fatal kind. The kind you hear when someone finally realizes the iceberg isn't going to move for them. Matt rubbed his temples and muttered, "Why the hell didn't anyone tell me this earlier?" Renee, barely old enough to rent a car, replied. Dana was the one who told people that. Meanwhile, I was at home in sweatpants, eating knockoff Cheerios and reading the entire meltdown through an anonymous email chain a former colleague had quietly blind copied me into. Someone even attached a screenshot of Matt's Slack message to legal. "Does anyone know how to override a license expiry tag in the dashboard thingy?" Thingy. He called it a thingy. That dashboard had been my baby for 5 years. I engineered it to lock down tighter than Fort Knox whenever a revocation event triggered. It wasn't just bureaucratic, it was surgical. Anyone without proper credentials who tried accessing a certification got their IP blacklisted and an intrusion report auto-filed to the internal audit logs. And yes, that same afternoon, the system flagged that Matt had tried to brute force his way in. By lunchtime, Chair was getting frantic pings from upper management. "Can we get Dana back? Does her NDA stop communication? Who approved this?" Nobody answered, because the only person who understood any of it was too busy deciding between soup and wings for lunch. Spoiler, I went with both. That evening, I opened LinkedIn and checked the company page. Still proudly boasting federally certified across all operations. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Instead, I smiled, because I knew that by Thursday, that lie was going to cost them more than their dignity. The seeds had sprouted. The vines had started to strangle. Friday morning arrived. With silent sirens, just a calendar ping and the sound of panic dropping like a brick into Matt's soy latte-filled stomach. FDA randomized site inspection. 10 o'clock a.m. It was legit. Random. Yes, but random within a window Dana had always planned for. Quietly. Annually. Color-coded. Spreadsheeted. Cross-referenced with vendor contracts. Renewal cycles, and if necessary, the phases of the damn moon. The auditors didn't play. They walked in with clipboards and the moral authority of IRS agents in Kevlar. By 9:22, the front desk called compliance. 3 inspectors here. They're asking for the license holder. Silence. Long panicked silence. Because there wasn't one. Matt, now sweating through his navy Banana Republic blazer, sprinted to the upswing and barked at legal. "Can we get Dana's credentials reinstated?" A poor junior associate Googled the license reinstatement process like it was a banana bread recipe. Meanwhile, Matt tried logging into the Federal Credentialing Board's portal using my old login. Access denied. Tried a password reset. User not found. He called the regulatory help desk. They transferred him 3 times before calmly explaining, "Dana Miller voluntarily relinquished her licensing authority. Her ID has been removed from the registry. Reinstatement requires full recertification. Average timeline is 4 to 6 weeks. Matt stared at the speakerphone like it had insulted his ancestors. He turned to our. "What clause did she use to revoke her credentials?" They flipped through my termination file, baffled. "We just processed the standard exit paperwork. I don't know anything about credentials." Someone from audit spoke up. "Wait, didn't she have her own clause in her employment contract?" That's when the whole room remembered. Dana Miller wasn't some dusty compliance grandma. She was the linchpin. And they'd yanked her out like a wisdom tooth fused to the spine. Meanwhile, across town, my phone buzzed. It was Liz from documentation. A decent human once. She used to bake cookies during audit week and leave posted doodles on my monitor back when the world made sense. Dana, Liz's voice cracked. Did you do this?" I stirred my coffee, looked out the window at absolutely nothing, and smiled. "No," I said calmly. "You did." Then I clicked. I didn't slam the phone down or yell. That would have given them too much credit. Because this wasn't revenge. This was math. 1 + 1 = you fired the wrong damn person. The auditors were now sitting in the lobby. The company legally couldn't allow them into secured wings without a licensed compliance officer. That meant the audit couldn't proceed. This meant every vendor and client relying on certified compliance would be in technical breach within 4 hours. And Dana? She was getting her nails done. Midnight burgundy gel. Not because she needed to, because power doesn't need to shout. It simply walks away. Monday, 8:37 a.m. The building smelled like stale coffee, dried sweat, and the quiet shame of a company that had just stepped on its own oxygen hose. That's when he walked in. Gregory T. Winslow, CEO. Crew 10 glowing like an overcooked rotisserie chicken. Silk shirt still wrinkled from whatever Monaco resort he'd drifted back from. The man radiated money, sunscreen, and complete oblivion. He strolled through the glass atrium like a Roman emperor returning from conquest, waving at receptionists, firing finger guns at junior VPs. Morning, folks. Hope y'all didn't burn the place down while I was gone. Nobody laughed. By the time he reached the executive floor, he had 3 unread urgent license compliance emails and a voicemail from legal ending with the words non-compliance disaster. At 9:02 am. He stormed into the ops room expecting turbulence. Instead, he found a plane crash, operations frozen, vendor shipments halted, inspections failed, certifications invalid, clients furious, revenue dashboard flatlined. He looked at the room of red-eyed managers and said sharply, "Who's handling this?" Every head turned toward Matt, who now looked less like a visionary and more like a middle schooler who just flooded the gymnasium with glitter glue. Gregory pulled up my termination paperwork on the wall monitor, scanned it, scrolled more. Then he said it quietly at first, like he couldn't believe the shape of the words. "You fired the license holder." Matt opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Gregory's voice didn't rise, it dropped. "You fired the person with the sole federal licensing authority across all departments." Matt stammered. "Her responsibilities were deemed redundant." Gregory laughed. Not a joke laugh. A laugh like he just discovered his teenager sold the family car for crypto. He jabbed the screen. "Her name is on every regulatory document, every active license, every renewal pathway, every legal compliance chain this company depends on to exist." He snatched a manila folder that legal had rushed in. "Here are our top 5 suspended vendors, all contracts frozen due to expired SOTs." And then he tossed a paper onto the table like a blackjack dealer. Dana Miller, listed on every single one. Gregory spun back toward the room. "And you let a kid who still writes in buzzword soup fire her?" Matt tried one last pathetic Hail Mary. I thought we could reassign it. It said we could just update the contact info. It's a federal license, not a damn email alias." Gregory thundered. Silence. Heavy. Humiliating. Then Gregory grabbed his phone and pulled up my contact. Nothing. HR cleared their throat. We tried reaching her. She's unresponsive." Gregory sighed and sat down, rubbing his temples like the sunburn on his forehead had crawled into his skull. "Then get her back," Matt coughed. She might not want to come back." Gregory stared at him like he was an insect that had wandered onto a designer loafer. "Oh, she'll come back," he said. "We'll pay. Hell, we'll name a wing after her if we have to." But even he knew the truth. The woman they tossed out like moldy leftovers was now the only person holding the keys to their entire kingdom. And she wasn't standing at the gate anymore. She'd built herself another castle, and inside every blueprint they were scrambling to reclaim, her name was still printed in permanent ink. Justice doesn't scream. It just watches the guilty bleed out on their own spreadsheets. By noon, Dana's inbox had 6 messages flagged high priority from Winslow Enterprises Communications and 1 voicemail from an assistant named Trevor, who sounded like he hadn't slept since Thursday and might be 3 minutes away from selling a kidney for leverage. The subject line on the final email read, "Urgent. Return requested by CEO." Directive. Dana didn't open it immediately. She finished her late breakfast, 2 eggs over medium sourdough toast, the quiet triumph of a woman whose enemies were trapped under fluorescent lighting while she basked in the soft purr of a home espresso machine. Across the city, Gregory Winslow was pacing his executive suite like a lion forced into customer service. And Matt, Matt was now Associate Project Liaison Level 2 Corporate Translation for Sit Down, Shut Up, and Don't Touch Anything with a Password. His standing desk was replaced with a shaky hand-me-down. His monitor was downgraded to a 19-inch square relic. The only thing agile about Matt now was how fast he'd been thrown under the bus. By afternoon, Gregory had legal draft a proposal for Dana, consulting role. Effective immediately, 6-month minimum contract, reduced salary, but generous bonuses, full gag order, no interviews, no social posts, no regulator comments. In other words, hush money with a Bajit offer arrived dressed in digital gold ribbon and a groveling note. Dana, we recognize the critical nature of your previous contributions. Please consider this opportunity to help us restore operational integrity. We are prepared to be flexible. Let's rebuild together. Dana read it twice. No apology. No accountability. Just desperation wearing an HR wig. She typed her reply. Subject: Ray. Return requested by CEO Directive Gregory. I appreciate the offer. Truly. Unfortunately, I don't return to burning buildings, especially not the ones where I was thrown into the fire for streamlining, as requested. Please find attached highlighted copy of my signed termination clause. Section 7C formal confirmation of license revocation from the National Registry Board. Screenshot of your company's certification dashboard. Taken 72 hours post-termination. You'll notice my name still listed grayed out. Irreplaceable. Wishing you compliance and clarity. Dana Miller. No threats. No fireworks. Just receipts. She clicked send and exhaled, not like someone mourning a job lost, but like someone closing a door they built themselves, installed themselves, and locked from the outside. Gregory read the email in stunned silence. Didn't forward it. Didn't reply. Just leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on that grayed-out dashboard screenshot. And for the first time since stepping off his yacht, he understood they hadn't just fired an employee. They had excommunicated the one person who understood the religion. And Dana? She wasn't praying anymore. 3 weeks later, LinkedIn nearly imploded. There she was. Dana Miller. Hair a touch lighter. Smile sharper. Dressed in business black like a woman who arrives only to collect. New position. Director of Compliance Strategy. StraightX Biocor. The post was short. No hashtags. No bragging. Just grateful to join a team where integrity isn't an afterthought. Below it, 2 lines of polite, perfect hellfire. StraightX Biocor secures OmegaMed and Viarc contracts. Citing continuous compliance confidence as the deciding factor, those were the crown jewels. The biggest clients Dana's old company bragged about every earnings call. The same clients who now packed up and left after learning their certification backlog was an unknown status for the foreseeable future. StraightX Biocor didn't need a sales pitch. Dana walked in with the licensing blueprint in her head and a reputation carved in granite. The fact that her name alone had once secured multi-million-dollar vendor relationships was enough to turn the tide. Meanwhile, back at her old stomping ground, still stuck, the dashboard never went green. License appeals suffocated in bureaucracy. Fines rolled in daily, some automated, some hand-delivered like divine hate mail. Vendors bailed. Clients panicked. The office holiday party was cancelled due to budgetary adjustments, and Matt didn't even get a goodbye cake. Just a 3-minute Zoom call and a transition plan that read more like an obituary. 1 week, he was barking orders in an open floor plan. Next, he was updating his RSM with vague nonsense like freelance strategist. As for Dana, she had her own corner office now. Glass walls. Espresso machine. A chair that didn't squeak in protest every morning. She watched alert pings from industry feeds like someone checking the weather for storms she'd already outflown. Ping, ping, ping. Her old company. Non-compliant. License status. Pending. Audit failures. Under appeal. She took a sip of her coffee, Colombian black, with a pinch of smug, and leaned back, calm and centered, above her monitor. Pinned with a blue pushpin, sat a single yellow sticky note. No signature. No emojis. Just 5 steady block letters. In case they ever forget I was the license, thanks for joining the fun. You office warriors. Subscribe for more switch flicking workplace justice. Let's keep making your former co-workers sweat.